All right, welcome to the Maiden Voyage, episode 1 of the Dynasty Saturday Night 5. We're live tonight on the Going for Two Live YouTube channel. For those of you listening on audio later, please subscribe, rate, and review. That'll do us a big favor. I'm Brian, and I'm here with my co-host Josh. How you doing?
Great. I'm actually excited to get this started.
Yeah. We kind of had a couple false starts, and but we're good to go. And as we grow here, we'll be getting some intro music, maybe a video, something like that, some graphics, right? But it's bare bones for now. No frills for the Maiden Voyage, which is one of my favorite Herbie Hancock songs, right? So you might be wondering, what is the Dynasty Saturday Night 5? Basically, we're going to do lists of 5 as a way to deliver some analysis and some takes on Dynasty fantasy football. Our goal is really to just kind of have a fun hang on Saturday night, but with analysis that you can use and maybe some humor here or there. The lists of 5 are merely just vehicles, really, for us to give some takes on a topic, right? So, for example, tonight is 5 guys we're higher than consensus on. Next week might be 5 rookies, right? 5 trade targets down the road. Who knows, right? But we're just going to do lists of 5. So, who is it that you're watching or listening to giving you this Dynasty fantasy football analysis? So it's a little bit about me. I'm 44 years old, high school history teacher by day, and I've been playing fantasy football for over 20 years. Only really started Dynasty probably about 4 years ago, and then really got hooked in 2020. I don't know whether it was because joining a bunch of leagues because we were all sitting around early pandemic or whatever, but just, the bug bit me and it was just go from there. And I just dove right in like a good addict and, joined a bunch of leagues and just, really, really dove in to Dynasty, joined communities and Patreons and consumed podcasts and articles and that sort of thing. And then, somewhere along the way, I decided, let me start writing about it. I started writing about it, started podcasting about it. And here we are, 2022 and working on podcast number 2 for me. Plug. You can also find me on Dynasty Fever, which is audio only, but that's another story. So, Josh, how about you? What's your story?
Yeah, I'm 31 years old. I live in Georgia, so I'm from the South. I've actually recently just got into Dynasty about a year and a half ago, and I decided to dive into it because I found myself getting very bored in the off season just doing, redraft leagues. You can only read so many podcasts and articles about that. So I actually like the idea of being able to do stuff when football season's not around or even a thought. You can it's when you can get really good deals. Like last year, I traded Allen Robinson for basically nothing. Turned into Elijah Moore this year in a pick. So I really like that aspect of it more than just doing redrafts. I still like doing the redrafts, but Dynasty's opened up a whole new world to me. And I'm admittingly still fairly new to it, but I've found it a lot of fun.
Right. No, and that's great. And I know a lot of people, might say, oh, well, they have about, 5-6 years experience between them. What the hell do they know? In general, in a lot of spaces I'm in, that newcomer perspective is really valuable, right? Because it often can problematize and challenge, tried and true, axioms that we just kind of assume are the way to do things, and maybe a fresh person comes with a fresh perspective. So, let's do it.
Absolutely.
All right. So tonight our topic is 5 guys we are higher than consensus on. Now, this is going to be based off of our rankings that we do. Now, a couple disclaimers here, right? First of all, just because we're saying we're higher than consensus on these people doesn't mean we're like to the moon, sky's the limit, elite, right? We're simply saying we're higher on them than the Dynasty community seems to be, right? And so when it comes to rankings, people have different ways of going about it. I've fine-tuned things over the years. I don't have like a strict model or formula or like, uh, statistical data that I run things through, right? I kind of weigh certain factors like talent, skill, right? Then there's age, current production, the team situation and the role that they're playing, what I expect from them moving forward. In other words, like expected production in the future. And I don't know if a lot of people do this. I also sprinkle in a little bit of like perceived market value into my rankings too, right? Because if I'm going to take player A over player B, it might be in some cases because I'm going to get more for them or could get more for them in a trade. I know some people feel that like we shouldn't tweak dynasty rankings, frequently. Otherwise, they're not dynasty rankings. I even saw somebody tweet once something like, if you change your dynasty rankings every week, you don't understand dynasty. Now, I'm not saying that I'm going to update them every week or that sort of thing. But really, for me, I reevaluate all the time, right? I aggregate information. I take things in. I'm a sponge, and then I react to it, right? So I tweak them probably more frequently than some other people do, but that's kind of the way that I go about things, Josh, how do you approach your rankings process?
I have found myself, since I've done Dynasty, trying to win, if not the first year, the second year. So I do probably more than most take into effect current and then 2 years down the road. I think if I can get 2 years out of you in a good situation, like just for example, I have Derrick Henry a good bit higher than Aaron Jones. They're about the same age, but I think Derrick Henry's still going to be the lead guy there, even if he, regresses back a little bit, as opposed to Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. I could see AJ Dillon coming in and they might trade him or he might just move down to the second back. So I definitely try and win as soon as I can, but I also don't want a team of veterans that in a year or two I'm going to be, kind of screwed. So I take that a little more into effect, but also like 22-year-olds who have already shown ability to produce in the NFL, I definitely shoot them up my rankings. So probably very similar to what you do.
Yeah, I've had to like kind of correct, I think, for excessive ageism, and really kind of look at this idea of like a 3-year window, like you were talking about, maybe 2-year window at running backs, right? And I say over the next 2 or 3 years, is player A, I think, going to produce more, be in a better situation than player B, and that's kind of how I go through it. And some people, have lean strong one way or the other and kind of are condescending toward the other, end, right? Like you'll see people, talk about like, oh, dynasty people, they're always just trading people for picks. And do you ever like score points and actually win? And, and I get it. I'm not really a day trader like that, but I don't like, hey, you want to play Dynasty your way, you play Dynasty your way. I'll play it. I'll play it mine. And there are teams where like, yeah, I'm in the process of kind of moving things around and retooling. And there's, teams where I'm in contention. And to me, having that variety is fun. You'll hear people call the like productive struggle or the rebuild, like the lose now club or, that sort of thing. And say, okay, you're just donating to the pot and I'll take your money. And, listen, man, number one rule of fantasy football, have fun.
Exactly. That gets lost a lot.
Yeah. So another element of what goes into rankings too is sometimes guys rise in my rankings simply because others are falling, right? And so, a guy may creep up to, we're going to talk about in a little bit, wide receiver 5, right? But that's because I'm kind of souring on some other people. And it's like, okay, I'm ready to take that guy over the other guys too. So it's a blend, and I'm always fine tuning things, right? So.
I'd rather stay on top of it and like tweak things a little more than others, so I can always like know where I'm at and be able to reference it.
Yeah. Yeah, I have some guys where, like talking about like they're rising because others are falling. And I'm looking at this, I'm saying, well, who else are you putting there? Are you putting this guy ahead of that guy? You can't. Are you putting this guy ahead of that guy? You can't. And I think there's probably two guys tonight that I'm going to talk about that fall somewhat into that category. But enough of the more philosophical angles for now. Let's get into the 5 guys that we are higher than consensus on. And someday we'll probably have an audio drop like Jeff likes to use, or like, let's get into the 5s, or something like number 5.
Well, my goal with this show is to have a nice green screen and have a nice backdrop like Jeff has. So That's something I'm definitely going to be working on.
All right. We'll do that. So you volunteered as Tribune to go first. Who do you want to talk about first?
Yeah, I'm going to kick it off with my most rostered player across Sleeper, and that's Elijah Moore. For Dynasty, he's, I think, one of the perfect wide receivers. He's only 22 years old. The only thing that would change is his situation, being on a slightly better team. But last year, in his last 6 games, he showed wide receiver 1 upside, scored 16.1 points, finishing overall as a wide receiver 2 during his last 6 games before getting hurt. He's shown to have a good rapport with all of his quarterbacks, whether it's Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco, and White last year. And as a rookie, he was successful against press coverage 73% of the time. I take route running and the ability to separate and get open very big, especially into my wide receiver evaluations. I think that's something that's very hard to coach, just like having the knack to know when to get open, how to get open. And he's very good at that already.
Yeah. I'm on board. So just for reference, folks, our rankings are on goingfor2.com. And so there's a bunch of us who rank, and then there's sort of a composite rank on the left-hand side of all those. So Josh has Elijah Moore at wide receiver 11. The composite ranking on Going for 2 is 17. And there's a kind of a span of 11 to 30, although the guy who has him at 30 hasn't updated his rankings lately. So 27 being the other low man on that. Fantasy Pros ECR, he is wide receiver 19 with a span between 14 and 30. DLF, wide receiver 17 with a high of 10 and a low of 23. Although DLF August ADP, he's going at wide receiver 28. And for reference, I have him at 16. So I'm on board. It's not often that I find people much higher on Elijah Moore than I am. I'm probably a little more confident in Zach Wilson being able to be a competent quarterback than some other folks are. Improving team, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, right? That's the rising tide lifts all boats thing. I'm not scared of Garrett Wilson's presence. They drafted Garrett Wilson, and Elijah Moore's value plummeted, and I'm like, give it to me, So yeah, I'm on board.
I don't understand that where another good receiver comes in and you automatically just plummet somebody else. If anything, it just keeps them from seeing all the double coverage, constantly the best guy, and so you can move them around. So
yeah, I agree
100%.
It's context dependent. Like I think in some situations a person might be hurt, whereas others, like you said, like I think Devontae Adams is probably going to open up some stuff for Hunter Renfrow this year, right? So like it all depends really on the situation. But it's sort of that age-old thing of like competition, too many mouths to feed versus like this is just a good offense and I want a piece of it.
Yep.
And like the slice of the pie might be smaller, but the pie is bigger, so you're all right. You know what I mean? And I think I think there's going to be a couple guys that we're talking about tonight that fall under that. Right?
So I definitely have another one.
Yeah. So the first guy I'm going to talk about is also a wide receiver, second year, and that's Nico Collins of the Houston Texans. I have him ranked at wide receiver 50. His Going for 2 composite is wide receiver 60 with a high of 50, a low of 77. Fantasy Pros, he's 67, a high of 54, and a low of 80. And DLF, he's 61 with a spread of 49 to 70. With his DLF August ADP being wide receiver 65. And for reference, Josh has him at wide receiver 53, only a few spots below me. So I don't think I'm going to get too much pushback on this one. He had been overlooked, and I think is continuing to be overlooked, right? He's on the Michigan offense, which was not great and was not using him well. right? And he sat out 2020 COVID year. But he was still, with all that, valued enough to be a third round pick for the Texans. I want to say, I forget which number overall. It doesn't really matter, right? He's got 6'4", 215 size, ran a 4.5 40, 4.45 on his pro day. If you're into that, his speed score is even better, 90th percentile. He's 23 and a half years old, and he's part of a trio that could make this episode for me. I'm higher on Mills, I'm higher on Nico, and I'm higher on Brevin Jordan than consensus, right? Again, higher than consensus. I'm not loving the Houston Texans, but I'm seeing arrow up everywhere there. They've improved the running game. Mills is, I think, ready to take a next step. Good camp reports for whatever that's worth, right? And I think he'll have a role. He'll have a role in this offense, right? And I think he would have had a role even with Mechie, but with Mechie's unfortunate illness, he's not in the picture. So I think arrow up even more on Nico. He showed some flashes last year, showed some chemistry with the quarterback. He got red zone targets. Is this a bet on Houston's offense improving? Sure, but when I'm in the 50s and 60s in my wide receiver rankings, I'm saying what's the upside, right? What's a guy that, if things broke, I think could be better than the guys I'm ranking around him, and that's Nico for me. Some guys that are above him who I like more. I like him more than are Chark, Jacoby Myers, Alec Pierce, David Bell, and Kadarius Toney. What say you?
Tony's an interesting one to hear just because his missability, but I like it. You basically took all my talking points away from me that I was going to add because I have written down he's 6'4" with 90th percentile speed.
Yeah.
He should be a really good red zone threat just because given his size. And then I was looking on reception perception, and according to Matt Harmon, he's got compared to T. Higgins rookie season. So I think just being put in the same breath as T. Higgins is really good. Because he is a little raw, but he's also like a freakishly athletic and tall and a big body. And he's definitely the number 2 behind Cook. So I have Nico Collins a lot on my bench for a lot of teams.
Yeah, he's one of my highest rostered players for sure. I was scooping him up cheap, and I think it's going to pay off. Who's next on your list?
All right, so on mine, I'm going to go with Jalen Hurts. He's easily my most rostered quarterback I have. Last year he finished as QB6 in points per game, and that was when he was not looking good as like a real life quarterback. But this year he has improved weapons. AJ Brown's a massive target hog. He can take a slant and turn it into a big play. He also led the quarterbacks in rushing, out-rushing Josh Allen in 2 less games. Lamar played less games, so probably would have finished ahead of him. But, so I'd probably leave him second in projected rushing. He's got a great offensive line, according to PFF. And there has been talks. The main thing I was looking at over the offseason was if he could improve his footwork and accuracy and, pocket presence. And based on the reports coming out of camp, he's done that so far. Tom will only tell with that. So I think if he can improve his accuracy down from the 63-ish% where it was up to 68 with the rushing upside, I think he's easily a QB1 overall contender. But mainly the biggest thing is AJ Brown coming is going to be a huge help. Him and Devontae Smith are going to be 2 very good outside receivers. And one last thing I have here, in weeks 8 through 18 against heavy boxes, which is 8 or more defenders, he was first in yards per attempt, 5th in first down rate, and 7th in success rate. So I think there's a lot of room to grow.
Yeah. Okay. I am out on Hurts. This is what I call the fall and rise of Jalen Hurts. I was trying to find the good. He looked kind of more confident this week, and he just kept being a bad NFL quarterback. And if you're not on the field, you can't be good for fantasy. So he just kept sliding in my rankings. And then I woke up in mid-July, and people are like, he's shooting up these dynasty rankings, and people are saying top 3 upside, top 5 upside 2022. And I just don't see it. For me, yeah, he can rush, but it's only a cheat code if you can pass. And there have been reports from camp that he is getting better with his progressions and reads before he takes off and that sort of thing. But he still can't really throw that well. And AJ Brown's great, and he does have an offensive line and we hope a running game that will make the play action that AJ Brown used so well in Tennessee, more available. But it still hurts throwing the ball. The team has 223 first-round picks that they are not going to hesitate to use on a quarterback if he's not stepping his game up this year. There is a non-zero chance that they're, I don't know, 2-4 or something without looking at the schedule, right? And Minshew's the quarterback in week 7. I cannot trust Hurts, right? I just can't. Like I can't. An NFL team needs you to be a competent passer to then be on the field for your cheat code to work. Cheat code doesn't work if you can't pass. So for reference, Josh has him at 5. Going for 2 composite is 9 with a range of 5 to 17. Fantasy Pros 8, range of 7 to 13. DLF, same range, 7 to 13, but he's 10th. DLF ADP, QB 8. I have him down at quarterback 16, right? I would rather have Tua, Carr, Stafford, Russ Wilson, Fields. I'd rather have than Hurts. So I just kind of pissed on the parade.
Well, I do have a quick question. What makes Fields higher than Hurts? Because I see both having the same kind of thing, and Fields doesn't have near as good as weapons. I think he might be a better runner because I like Fields a lot too. But he also, after Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet, and that's about it. And he has a worse offensive line. I'll just be curious to hear your take on that.
He's good at football. Jalen Hurts isn't. It's pretty simple for me. He's a much better passer than Jalen Hurts. And yeah, his weapons might be whatever, but like I think people are kind of like, oh, that offense is going to be terrible. Yeah, the offensive line isn't great. They improved it a little bit, but it's not very good. But it's not going to be this like shit show, right? At least the way I see it. So for me, I have him 5 spots ahead of Hurts because he just is better at football than Jalen Hurts is. I just don't see it with Hurts. Yeah.
I honestly like them. I agree on all these. So
yeah, no, an agreement.
Justin Fields is 11. So
yeah, I have him at 11 too. I just have him, way ahead of Hurts. Yeah. So yeah. All right. So the next guy I want to talk about is Elijah Mitchell. Right. I have him ranked at RB 14. Is going for 2 composite is 20, high of 8. I think that's Jeff. Low of 24. Fantasy Pros 22 with a high of 16, a low of 31. What the heck? DLF is 21 with a shorter range, 20 to 25. His DLF ADP is RB 25, and Josh has him all the way down at RB 21. So I think part of what my deal is with Mitchell is one of those like, well, who else are you going to put there kind of thing, right? Like I just don't see people who are going above him as anything that I can put above him, like, Aaron Jones and Derrick Henry and, and people like that. So, I think, first of all, people way overblow the whole, like, Shanahan's the devil and he's going to use 1,700 quarterbacks, right? He finds a guy he likes, he uses him, right? They used Mitchell. He had a big share of touches last year. People also overblow TDP, to Davis Price, right? Like he was a huge reach in the NFL draft and has not been impressive this offseason, this preseason, being outplayed by Jeff Wilson and Jordan Mason. He's like 4th on the depth chart now He is a nothing burger. So I'm out on TDP. So if I'm out on TDP, I ain't scared of him, which means I'm confident in Mitchell. People, he's 6th-round draft pick. His job isn't secure. Each situation is different, right? Tom Brady was a 6th-round draft pick. I'm not saying Elijah Mitchell is Tom Brady, but this idea of they'll just cut bait because they didn't invest much in him. He's good. He's performed more than I can say for some people that are going ranked ahead of him, like Kenneth Walker and Travis Etienne, who haven't played a snap. One has a hernia, one's coming back from an injury, and is far more limited than as a weapon than people think, in my opinion. But again, I think this is also like a rankings philosophy thing, right? Like, I can't put Derrick Henry or Aaron Jones ahead of him because of age. I can't put Etienne and Kenneth Walker III ahead of him. I'm just lower on them than consensus anyway, but they also haven't played a snap in the NFL. I like Akers, but he's got an Achilles and Darrell Henderson, to eat away at his touches. So I can't put him ahead of Elijah Mitchell. I like Monty. You could argue, about Monty. But there is some concern about the O-line, and some people think Herbert's going to get more touches this year. So it's one of those things of, it's a ranking philosophy, and also it's a, well, who else are you going to put there kind of thing. I'm not super high on Elijah Mitchell, but when I look at with the folks I'm ranking around him, he's the guy I pick.
No, I think those are great points, because if you look at his underlying metrics, he wasn't the greatest, but at the same time, it's him or Jeff Wilson, in my opinion, at this point. I think the 49ers would much rather have Elijah Mitchell running the ball. I mean, in just 10 to 11 games, he had 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to look at the underlying metrics and say he's not good when he easily produced. I mean, a lot of that is the scheme. 49ers running backs do good, but I think he's a really good running back, especially in that system. They like him because he's decisive, hits the holes, and does what he's supposed to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think people are burying him just because of TDP or whatever, and it's people are going to regret that, I think, this year. Again, I'm not saying to the moon, but I think people are going to regret that.
I think he's an awesome running back, to where if you wait a little bit, not necessarily 0 RB, but like in my Scott Fishbowl draft, I didn't get a running back to around 6 or 7, and I got him in Singletary. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty happy with that, given the other value I was able to get other places. So I think he's a good target, definitely, to go after.
All right. So the next guy that you want to talk about, I like as well. So it's going to be kind of an agree fest. You have him at wide receiver 20. Our going for 2 composite is 26, with a split of 20 and 39. Fantasy Pros is 31, with a high of 25 and a low of 39. Who is ranking this guy wide receiver 39? DLF is a little more kind. Someone actually has him as high as 11, with a low of 32, so his composite is 24. He's going as wide receiver 36 in DLF startups. I have him at 22. Who are we talking about?
Oh, the only Chris Olave going out.
Olave! I'm contractually obligated to do that when his name is mentioned, by the way.
I love it. I just think he's easily the most pro-ready wide receiver coming out of that rookie class. I had him ranked first in a lot of especially early on, as far as rookie wide receivers. He's easily the best route runner in the group. And like I said, I take that real big into effect in my rankings. He's got a very easy path to being the number 1 target. I do not like Michael Thomas, not as a person, but as a fantasy asset. He's always hurt. I don't think he's going to be 100% when he's there. I think Chris Olave will have a better season, even if Michael Thomas plays most games. And it's just really hard to find a receiver that young that can come in and produce like someone who's not a rookie. He's got great body control and ball tracking skills. And I think with him and Jameis, I think he's going to have a huge first year, and I think he's only going to build from there. So I don't understand how he's going 36 or even after 25. That's just – he's ready to produce now, and that's what I'm looking for out of young receivers.
Going into, by the way, thanks Kyle Senra for tuning in and checking us out in the chat. at Senra Says on on Twitter. So let's see. Olave, going into the draft, I had like a on the eve of the draft, I had 4 guys where I was like, listen, coin toss, right? Jameson Williams, Olave, in no order, Garrett Wilson, and
Drake
Olave.
London.
Drake London. Yeah. And I was probably lowest on London and continue to be. I liked Olave's landing spot. Jameis Winston is a good quarterback, especially now with the eye surgery. The offense is going to move the ball with Kamara. He's a good route runner. He's got talent. He's got skills. Like, there's nothing to not like about Chris Olave. I mean, he could be the one there. By the end of this season, because we don't know what we're getting from Michael Thomas. And Jarvis Landry's a competent PPR guy, but nothing really to worry about there. I love Olave this season. I don't know how anybody can't, but here we are.
I'll keep taking him.
Yeah. So interestingly, I remember in rookie drafts, I was drafting like 6, 7, 8, 9, and I just kept getting Olave. I'm like, okay, take your Drake London and your friggin' Treylon Burks. Give me a lot.
Yeah.
So I wound up with a lot of them, and so I'm hoping things go well this season. Exactly. Next guy I want to talk about is Michael Gallup, right? So I have him ranked 39. His going for 2 composite is 50 with high of 29 and a low, or no, 39 I think is me, and a low of 64. Fantasy Pros ECR is 51 with a high of 46 and a low of 62. What are these people smoking, Josh? DLF 47 with a split of 42 and 50. His DLF ADP is 55, and you have my boy down at 51. Michael Gallup, again, not through the roof, not to the moon. Like, I have him as wide receiver 39, so everybody slow down, right? People are ready to anoint Jalen Tolbert the 2, and we're not there yet, right? We're burying Gallup way too soon, right? He's a talented receiver. He's going to have a good role on a good offense. He's still 26 and a half years old, right? In 2019, 66 for 1107 and 6 TDs, wide receiver 22, according to Fantasy Pros. In 2020, bit of a dip, 59, 843, still 5 touchdowns, wide receiver 38. And then, of course, the injury in 2021. Given the presence those years of Ezekiel Elliott, Pollard, Blake Jarwin, Lamb, Dalton Schultz, I think he did pretty well for himself with all those quote-unquote mouths to feed, right? He seems to be doing pretty good. He's not going to start the year on the pup. He may not play, first couple weeks, but he's in a point where he's not going to play. I mean, he's not going to start the year on the pup. Tolbert, who by the way was one of my favorite draft sleepers, is still a rookie, and he needs to refine parts of his game, right? If he came out of like Ohio State, he'd probably be a better, well-rounded, route runner and stuff like that. But he didn't. He didn't have that coaching. I think also he had some focus drops too, right? So he's got to work. He's got to work on that. Gallup should produce well once he's back on the field. The offense has lots of potential. He's got a skill set that will give him a good role and will mean opportunity. It may not be a big slice of the pie, but the pie is going to be pretty big in Dallas. So I just do not understand how he's getting ranked in the 50s and 60s for people. Please explain to me.
My biggest thing is, like you pointed out, in 2020, he only had 10.8 points per game. He was pretty good, but he wasn't amazing. I was higher on him before this last injury. At 26, and he's already had a major injury, and I could be mistaken, but I thought he missed some time in 2020 also. which I could be wrong on that. I'm just more worried. I'm very high on Jalen Tolbert. I'm afraid if he doesn't come back 100%, it's either going to be kind of an ongoing battle throughout the season for who's number 2 or maybe number 3 behind Schultz. And I'm just afraid Tolbert's going to come out of the gate swinging and kind of demote him just by – that's my main withdrawals. 51 might be a little lower than I should have him, but I put him there so I wouldn't – I'm trying not to draft him too much because I used to be overexposed and found myself not being able to use him. So –
yeah, I think the Tolbert coming out of the gate scenario is definitely, there's a non-zero chance. It's within the range of outcomes. But here are some people who are ahead of him in going for 2. Christian Watson, a project, athletic, but a project, and also hurt, right? Pickens, okay, I have Pickens ahead of him, even, by like 7 spots or so. So I'm okay with that. Tyler Lockett, already pushing 30 with Geno Smith this year. Jahan Dotson. Okay, I'm cool with that. I've got Dotson a few spots ahead of him. Hunter Renfrow. I mean, he's a PPR machine, but like, really? I mean, over Gallup's athleticism. Like, okay, like, I'm not gonna, Chase Claypool. I'm loving it. If Claypool can be a big slot or even develop back into like a good outside receiver, fine. Like I'd like that, but are we really putting him 6 spots ahead of Michael Gallup? Christian Kirk seems okay. I'm okay with that. Michael Effin Thomas?
No, see, I'm not okay with that one.
Sky Moore, like, hasn't played a snap. Like, he's only 2 spots below Gallup for me, so it's not a big deal, but like he's 9 spots ahead in our composite rankings. I can't do this.
I mean, I don't blame you. I don't understand, just to touch on it, the Sky Moore hype. I get the upside, but as of right now, it might be the 4th option there. I still like Mecole Hardman a little bit more just for this year, not so much Dynasty, but
I hate Mecole Hardman.
Really?
2022, 2023, 2024. Yeah, no, I'm out. I'm out on Hardman. He's had his chances. They don't like him so much. They're like, oh, we need to get MVS too. Like, I can't.
Which MVS is like a bigger Mecole Hardman.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, he's a great route runner and he's going to get separation and that sort of thing. But rookie, small school, crowded offense, how big is the pie going to be? Like, we don't know what the offensive identity is going to be now post Tyreek. I mean, I have him at 41, which is like the same as our composite. So like whatever, but I mean, I have him 2 spots below Gallup and we have him 9 spots ahead of Gallup on ours. People got drunk on landing spot with Sky Moore. I was actually trying to trade out of that range of the draft. That was Sky Moore, Christian Watson, James Cook. I was like,
right there at the end of the first, and like 12 teams and stuff. Yeah. No, I don't blame you. All right, so I'll go ahead and touch on Jacoby Myers.
Yes,
he's gonna be my next guy for the rankings. Let me pull that up. Okay, so I have Myers at 61. You're not far off from me. Going for 2 composite. He's 58, low of 45. Or high of 45, low of 73. So there's some people higher on him than us. Then you also got Fantasy Pros. He's 61 with a high of 54, low of 78. DLF, he's going to 75, which I don't really understand that. The low of only 69, high of 91. And then the ADP is 56 overall. So my main thing for Myers is I love people that get a good target share. Last year, he was top 12 in target share with 23%. And out of the slot, he actually had a 28.4% target share.
Mm-hmm.
And I really just think, even though it's been kind of a slow start in the camp, I really like Mac Jones. I think that offense is going to improve. They got another good receiver that should open the field more in Devontae Parker. And last year, he saw more red zone targets than Deebo Samuel, 21-17. So I think he's going to be a much better red zone target with a second-year QB who will be more comfortable throwing in the red zone. And he's only 25 years old. I feel like I've been hearing his name for you 3 or 4 years now. I honestly thought he'd be a little bit older, and I still like him to be the number one target over Devontae Parker and even Kendrick Bourne. So I think he's getting slept on too much. The touchdown talks where he took forever to score his first touchdown. And, he wasn't that good at that last year, but DJ Moore hasn't been over his career yet either. So that doesn't, I'm jumping all in on Jacoby Myers for a big year this year.
Interesting, because like you have him at 61 and saying jumping in big year. I have him at 64 because I'm like, ugh. Like he's good for PPR, right? And he's gonna get a lot of targets, and he fits sort of Mac Jones's game well. I'm not a huge Mac Jones guy, but no, he fits that. I mean, like devil's advocate. I think there is something to the Belichick's the devil more so than Shanahan's the devil, right? Like, you could see a game where like there's like 700 rushing attempts, and they're fine. So that maybe that, but at cost, he's probably okay. I mean, I don't know there's a wide range here. People have him as low as 78 and 91, but you know who I like even more? Tyquan Thornton. He's going to start the year on IR, but he was another one of my favorite draft sleepers. Again, is a little, raw and needs to refine some stuff with his game. But he was having a really good camp, and I think people really slept on him. I think people are kind of jaded by Baylor wide receivers and that sort of thing. I like Thornton. I think he's the best receiver they have, like pound for pound. But again, he's going to start the year injured, so who knows? But yeah, I like him a lot. Yeah,
I got Thornton actually in like 3rd and 4th rounds of rookie drafts because I have a few shares of him also, and it's just for that speed. Like I'll take a chance that late because if for some reason he doesn't work out right away, I didn't spend anything on him really. So.
All right, so next guy I'm going to talk about is Jalen Waddle. Right. I have him at wide receiver 6. His composite for going for 2 is 11 with a high of 5, a low of 16. Fantasy Pros is 11 with a high of 7 and a low of 15. DLF is 12 with a spread of 4 to 14. His DLF ADP is 11, and you have him down at 13, you rascal. So what is my case for Jalen Waddle being wide receiver 6? Some of it is the who else you're going to put their thing in. We'll get to that in a second. Huge rookie year. Young, super talented, attached to a young, accurate quarterback who gets way too much hate, in my opinion, and is underrated, right? People are like Tyreek, but this goes to the narrative of the rising tide lifts all boats. The addition of Tyreek and better running backs overall, the offense is going to improve. The new offense, the coach seems to know what the heck they're doing. I think it's going to free up Waddle actually for not being tied to the slot so much. And for those of you who like ADOT and air yards, I think you're going to see a nice bump there for Waddle. But this is, again, also a rankings philosophy question. Like, I can't have Cups and Diggs ahead of him. Cup and Diggs ahead of him, right? When I'm looking at a 3-year window on Cup, who's like already 29 with a 34-year-old quarterback who's essentially got, pretty semi-chronic back issues. Like, I can't put him ahead of Waddle. Diggs, great route runner, very productive. He's going to probably have better stats than Cup over the 3-year window, but I don't think better than Waddle. He's 28, I could see that, he's only 2 below Waddle for me in the rankings. The more interesting, I think, debate with Waddle for me is A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf, who also people I think are way too low on just because he's going to have to eat 1 year of Geno. So A.J. Brown, for me, moved down to 7 with Waddle 6. And A.J. Brown is he's good. He's super talented. He hasn't shown an ability to stay on the field a lot. And people are like, oh, now, he's here and he's going to do this, and got Devonta Smith on the other side. And this goes back to got Jalen Hurts throwing him the ball, and that's not good. So what say you on Jalen Waddle?
Well, unlike you, I do have the older guys that I have in front of him. I have, Stephon Diggs. I also have Devontae Adams up there, and then I also have Cooper Kupp. Those are the only ones that I really see most people have lower because of age. But when I'm drafting, like I said, I'm looking for 1 to 2 years, less of a window than you are. So that just goes into philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Those 3 guys to me are good enough to be the overall or top 3 wide receivers any given year that they can produce good. Maybe not so much Adams now. But I'm looking for the league winners per se, that, the guys I can trust on to get me 20 points a game or something. So if I can get that for 1 or 2 years, I can win the league. Then I can, I did this last year. I had Cooper Kupp. I won the league I was in. So then I started trading off pieces like that just because
Mm-hmm.
It might be more of a redraft take on Dynasty, but I always want to, especially for money leagues, I always want to get my return on investment as quickly as I can.
Yeah, and that's a philosophy thing. Like some people go into that and say like, I try to win every year. What are you talking about? I never rebuild, right? And that's the way they do it, and that's the way they play it. Even for me, like there might be a situation where just the way the draft falls in the first few rounds, I'm like, this is probably going to have to be a win now team. And so then I'll pivot to that. And then, some of my rankings I'll depart from, based on that scenario. And then there's other folks who just like draft for value, trade for need, right?
Yeah.
Which is fun, but I don't bank on making the trades. You know what I mean? So,
No, I don't trade quite as much as most other people do, but he's one of the ones where I've moved people up ahead of him that I like a little more. So it's not necessarily a knock on him. Recently, I've moved up Michael Pittman, Elijah Moore, and Deontay Johnson all up above him. So because when I first started the year, I had him up there, but with Tyreek Hill there, I'm not a big fan of Tyreek Hill moving forward, but he demanded a big target share with the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that really changing. So it's just more me being a little bit higher on Deontay Johnson, Elijah Moore, and Pittman that made him go down a little. It's nothing against him.
Right on. All right, who's your number 4?
This is number 5.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, you threw me off there. I was like, did I miss somebody?
Yeah.
No, I'm going to go with I'm a Falcons fan, so I'm going to go with Tyler Algier.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as rankings go, I have him at 30. Going for 2 composite, it's 48 with a range of 30 to 59. There's a 97, but I don't think they've updated theirs. In Fantasy Pros, you got 49 as an average. The range from 37 to 61.
61, jeez.
Yep. And then DLF, it's even worse. You got a composite of 51 from 47 to 65.
Who is doing that?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do some investigating after this. And the DLF ADP is 47, and you have him at 42.
Yeah.
So after doing some more research, I moved him up even more. I was looking back on his college stats. In his last 2 seasons in college, he was first in yards after contact, second in touchdowns, and a PFF rushing grade had him 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
He also showed the ability to be a bell cow back, both passing and running. He had 275 carries and 1,600 yards. And honestly, he has one of the easier opportunities to becoming the number 1 for a team. Patterson last year showed signs of fatigue kind of as the year progressed, and he's over 30. And then I'm just not a fan of Damian Williams. I think they just brought him in to cover for injuries. I don't think he's a huge threat once the season goes for Algier to get carries. And then Algier looked really good in the preseason. I think one of the last games he averaged over 8 yards a carry. He got a touchdown, and he's gotten a lot of praise from the staff. And the Falcons didn't have a 4th-round pick, I believe, but I do feel like they probably would have drafted him there. So people saying he went, 5th round or got drafted late, I'm not looking too much into that.
Okay.
But I will say that it's not the best offense, but being a number 1 still, it's a plus.
Yeah. I actually thought I was higher than consensus on him at 42, which I kind of seemed to be. I was kind of lower on him going into the draft than some other folks. He to me is a very limited two down guy, and just isn't very dynamic. He kind of runs like a former linebacker, and very little PPR upside. So I was much lower on him. I think I had him at like 10 RB10 going into the draft, like as far as rookie prospects go. I've warmed up on him a little bit, and I talked about getting drunk on the Sky Moore landing spot. I don't think I got drunk on the Atlanta landing spot, but there's opportunity there. Cordarrelle Patterson is, nominally at least going to be the lead back, but he's, I think the party's over there. He's in his 30s, right? I have a little bit of a shinier outlook on on Damian Williams than you do. I think he's potentially going to get touches and that third down work. And I don't think they it's just an injury thing for him, or just a covering injuries thing for him. And so, there's possibility there, but it is the Atlanta offense. It is Mariota, and but you have him actually ahead of Dameon Pierce, which I don't think a lot of people do.
No, I'm not really buying into too much of the Dameon Pierce hype. I think it's maybe not a worse offense, but I think the two teams are similar. I think Algier has, in college at least, he didn't do a ton of receiving work, but I think he's going to be a little bit better if they want to toss some screens to him or something than Dameon Pierce. And I'm just it might just be being a slight bit of a homer, but I'm a little higher on Mariota and the Falcons offense than I am the Texans offense. I think they'll be playing from behind a lot more. But I have them back to back because it's very hard to tell.
Yeah. I have Pierce a few spots ahead. He's another guy I didn't like much going into the draft. He's, I thought, limited in his athleticism and his sort of between the tackles, two down guy. But again, went to a team where like they had a bell cow wanted sign on the door. So there's opportunity there, and he has looked good, and so I'm warming up to him, and his value is. I think I only have him like maybe 5 spots ahead of Algier. But we have a Jamie watching here chiming in that he also has Algier at 42, like I do, between Michael Carter and Davis Price. So my response would be you're way too low on Michael Carter and you're way too high on Davis Price, but. That's the beauty of this, right? That's why we're having this kind of show, and that it's fun, and we thank you for being with us on a Saturday night. Kyle's chiming in again for Algier. He's with you. He running back 5 in this year's class, higher than I had Pierce. I think I had Pierce at like 10 and like Algier at like 11. I just didn't love him. There's guys I like better, but
I think a lot of it for me is Algier had a much better collegiate career and showed the ability to be that guy, as opposed to Pierce, who couldn't really get out of a committee or get a ton of be the sole guy at Florida. Yeah, it could be coaching or what, but that's mainly what put me ahead of him.
Well, some of the other things too that had me ranking guys higher is like athleticism and sort of they fit what the NFL is going to these days, right? And so I have Jerome Ford higher than Algier going into the draft. I don't have him there anymore, but I'm probably still higher on Jerome Ford than other folks. Rashad White I had ahead of him. Brian Robinson I had ahead of him.
Which that would have been a really good call if that unfortunate situation didn't just happen with Robinson. Yeah. He was looking to take over.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I just doesn't impress me. Saw him as very limited. But when I was doing some articles and stuff, I said, listen, if you're a running back and you go to these teams, you're going to eat possibly. And Atlanta and Houston were at the top of that list. So, yeah. All right. So the last person I'm going to talk about is filed under the put some damn respect on his name category. And that is one Josh Jacobs. Okay. I have him ranked at RB 15. His composite on going for 2 is 24 between 15 and 33. Fantasy Pros 25, the high of 20, the low of 30. Same high and low on DLF, but 24 is the average. His running back ADP in DLF is 26, and Josh, you have him down at 33.
Yeah, I just realized I'm the low guy going for 2 on Jacobs.
All right, Kyle, we're gonna get to your question in a bit. I just need to do my Josh Jacobs rant here. Okay, people are losing their minds. The disrespect for Josh Jacobs is maddening, right? They don't pick up the 5th year on his contract and they draft Zamir White, and all of a sudden we're burying Josh Jacobs. I think it is nuts. First of all, maybe it's because I'm just lower on Zamir White than most other people. Again, a very limited, straight line runner with very little PPR upside, and he's just not good. Hasn't shown good vision. This in the preseason, like he doesn't worry me at all, and maybe that's the key to this, right? Right, and the contract thing. Listen, they could bring him back cheaper next year, or still at his age could find a big role on the next team. People are making way too big a deal out of that, right? He's gonna get red zone looks like he always has, which is important. This guy was a first round, 24th overall first round pick with an Alabama pedigree, right? We are losing our minds here. 2019 RB 12 total PPR points in weeks 1 through 14, the regular season, ranking RB 13 in points per game. He dropped a little bit to RB 19 in weeks 1 through 16, so inclusive of the playoffs, and 16 in points per game. But his actual points per game didn't really change much. It's just that others sort of did, right? In 2020, RB 11 weeks 1 to 14, 13 in points per game. RB 9 weeks 1 to 16, 14 in points per game. 2021 RB 17 total in weeks 1 through 15, regular season, 17th in points per game. RB 13 weeks 1 through 17, inclusive of the playoffs, and 16 in points per game. But again, in all those instances, his points per game didn't change much. Only 2 rookies worth a damn, really, and I would say maybe even one, Breece Hall, entered the pool in the rankings. So how the hell does he drop this far? Abdullah will cap Jacobs' receiving ceiling. That's true, but they were only mildly experimenting with him as a receiver to begin with. So I don't think that's too big of a ding there. This is, again, also a rankings philosophy thing, right? Like Derrick Henry and Aaron Jones are going ahead of him at 29 and almost 28, with, Jones very likely being cut after this year because they have an out in the contract. And I just can't do that. Kenneth Walker III ahead of Jacobs, hasn't played a snap. Hernia, didn't look too great anyway. Looked mediocre when he was playing. Not much PPR upside there. Lenny Fournette ahead of Josh Jacobs. Age, Tampa Bay's offensive line woes, Rashad White cutting into his targets, A.J. Dillon, okay, maybe we're getting close there. I only have Dillon like maybe 4 spots below Jacobs, but I can't put him ahead of Josh Jacobs when he's clearly, 1B at the best there in an offense that just lost Devontae Adams and has a who knows who's going to come up at wide receiver. Antonio Gibson ahead of Josh Jacobs. Again, I think people are pushing Gibson probably too far down in their rankings, but we're putting Antonio Gibson ahead of Josh Jacobs? Come on. What is going on here? Have we lost our minds? Please tell me why we're so low on Josh Jacobs.
With this one, I might have lost my mind a little because I was trying hard to play devil's advocate on this. I just think I just have him a little too low. I'm probably going to move him up to probably still not as high as you'd like, but probably up in the high 20s. The main thing was I was just pessimistic about, the late season extra work because they did lose Drake. Like you said, Abdullah might cap some of that. And I'm not the biggest fan of Zamir White either, but the fact that they drafted him with all this stuff going on, like the talks about Jacobs and the contract, I think they're going to use him more than they maybe should. But still, he's only 24. He doesn't have too many injury concerns. He did fracture his ankle in 2017, and he's had a few little ankle injuries come here and there, but he hasn't really had anything too significant. So I don't know. I think it's just all the stuff going on around him that just scares some people off, myself included. But I was trying to find things he's bad at, and he's not. He's always, like you said, 12 to 15 in the finish. He's their easy number one goal line back. I think when I made the rankings, I was a little afraid Zamir White was going to eat into his touches a little bit more than he might actually, or that he should, because I don't really like Zamir White either.
I don't disagree with Jamie's point here that the Raiders' offensive line can't open up running lanes, so I can see them throwing a ton. Yeah, David Carr is going to have fun with Devontae Adams and Waller and Hunter Renfrow. I'm not denying that, but even with those guys present, right? Except for Adams, he's just still consistently producing, right? Like as a low end RB1, but more likely a high end RB2. And again, it's a rankings philosophy thing. I'm not saying Josh Jacobs is elite, partly because of Jamie's point here, but I am not putting Kenneth Walker III, Lenny Fournette, Antonio Gibson, and AJ Dillon, and Derrick Henry and Aaron Jones ahead of him. I just can't. And so he ends up as my RB15. So we're pushing a little over the hour here. So sorry, Jeff, but we had a lot of intro stuff, so we won't be doing that next week. So Kyle has a question for us about who our most rostered players are. Josh, you said probably Hurts. Is that just a guess, or do you know anything for sure? Or
He's my most rostered quarterback on Sleeper. My most rostered player is Elijah Moore. I think I have him on 7 teams, and it's Deontay Johnson and Rashad Penny. See, I read this as top player. I don't know if that's for rostership, but my top player is Lamar Jackson, I think. It's the guy I'm trying to get, but he's just going a little too quick. But if it was as far as rostership, it's Elijah Moore, Deontay Johnson, and Rashad Penny. And then Jalen Hurts are my top guys.
Right. So actually, I can answer this with a little bit of accuracy because I actually just checked today. I use a Dynasty Nerds, Dynasty GM stuff. There's some convenient features there, among many other things that I use. And I had to resync because I cut out a few leagues. And the highest rostered player for me at 49% exposure is none other than the aforementioned tight end Brevin Jordan. So I was gobbling them up cheap, and if things work out, I'll probably move a few shares, and if they don't, then they don't. But yeah, it's Brevin Jordan for me. Let's see here, and Kyle.
My highest is 38% because I use Dynasty Planet. You can plug in your sleeper, and it tells you all the players.
Kyle's got some interesting ones here. He's got Mo Alley Cox and Deion Jackson. One would think he might be a Colts fan, but I think Deion Jackson was a good scoop. There were some guys there behind that were competing for time behind JT, who I liked a lot better than Deion Jackson, but he won, and a few of those guys got cut. So a pretty good stash.
I like Jamie's Chase Edmonds. I love Chase Edmonds this year. I just don't know about moving forward.
I'm a little on him. I could see it going either way, but I do have him. I think at 31 among the running backs. So yeah, I think he's in a good position there. But his most dynasty rostered player is David Njoku, tied to Watson after this year. Tied to Watson. And then, of course, a big contract, so vote of confidence from the team. Athletic, former first-round pick, was going cheap. Yeah, you could have a lot worse most rostered players.
It's also not a
Dynasty
downgrade
League
without
are.
Watson because Jacoby Brissett does target tight ends at a pretty high rate. So
Yeah. All right. See. Yeah, and Kyle says that agrees with Jamie that good value on Edmonds. Yeah, he wasn't expensive at all.
see, I have him
So
ranked 22nd.
yeah. Okay. So yeah, we like him. So all right. Closing thoughts. What did we learn today? Right? Like what did this analysis of who we're higher on consensus than teach us or the millions of people watching?
I learned that I'm probably too low on Josh Jacobs. So I will move him up a little bit. I won't move him ahead.
I beat you into it.
I won't move him ahead of the guys you said you wouldn't because I still like
yeah.
Ken Walker, AJ Dillon, all those. But I still will move him up ahead of Rashad Penny and some of the other guys that I have him ahead of. Besides that, I might give Michael Gallup another chance. He just kind of burned me in the past, so
Yeah.
I'm a little jaded. So I see a human emotion coming into the analytics.
All right, and Kyle, thanks. Appreciate it. We had fun tonight. He's chiming in that it's a good episode. I think for me, it's just I learned that I still am baffled about Jalen Hurts, and also that like I said at the top of the show, rankings philosophy plays a role here. Right, I'm dinging Derrick Henry and Aaron Jones for age, whereas some other people, are valuing that immediate production, and so they float upwards, and have, first of all, number one rule, have fun. Number two rule for me is consume as much as you can from a variety of sources. So hear why I hate Hurts and why Josh loves him. Right, hear from all sorts of folks across the Dynasty community, because I think sometimes people get in like that one lane, they're in like that one Patreon and they like really like this, and it just kind of becomes an echo chamber. So time for plugs. Speaking of Dynasty communities, you can find our rankings at goingfor2.com. I have a couple articles up there, and I've been dragging my feet on another one that's going to be called The 10 Commandments of Dynasty Trading. I'm going to try not to get soapboxy and cranky about it, but who knows? And you can find me on Twitter at ffjunkie_. I also do Dynasty Fever, which varies, but it's looking like Thursdays might be the regular day. And you can follow us at Dynasty Fever Pod. That's audio only. Josh, plug away.
Yeah, so you can find me tweeting and running my mouth on Twitter at Rotonaut, ROTONAUT. I also will be doing weekly articles on goingfor2.com. I think what I'm going to be doing is 10 things to look forward to each week. Mm-hmm. And then I'll also be doing weekly rankings based on matchups and per week. So you can find all that stuff over at goingfor2.com.
I admire y'all that do the weekly rankings like that. I ain't got time for that like that.
Well, I'm about to see.
That's too much for me. So normally we would be kicking off a triple header, and Cover Zero, the IDP show, would be up at 9:00. They're not live this week, but come back to this same YouTube channel for the DFS Pawn Shop late night at 10:30 Eastern. And that's a wrap. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate people being on board on the maiden voyage, and we will see you next time.